Okay, good afternoon again, everybody. My name is Dan Coronado. I am one of the senior education consultants at AECC Brisbane office, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining our education fair today, and of course for tuning in to this session about how to build a career in Australia as a registered nurse. Just a brief of some sort of housekeeping before we start the actual session. Please be reminded that all attendees are muted in this particular session. So if you have any question regarding all throughout the course of this session, please type your questions through the Q&A button located in the bottom section of your Zoom pages. And then at the end of this session, there will be one lucky winner of $100 digital MasterCard. So please pay attention to the discussion, and then I'll be asking one easy question at the end, and then whoever answers it correctly first, then you will have that chance to win the $100 digital voucher. All right, so as I said, this session for this afternoon is specifically about how to build a career as a registered nurse in Australia, which I believe is very timely at this point in time, considering that the world still continues to battle with the current COVID pandemic. So in this session, we are going to be very fortunate to be joined by experts for them to share their their experiences, and then how they look at they will give us an insights on the current registered nurse occupation in Australia, in terms of, they will help us understand what do these people do. They will give us some sort of demographics, let's say, in terms of the registered nurse workforce, how many of them are, let's say, women in terms of gender, how many of them in terms of average age compared to other industry. We're going to talk about average salary level, and then we are also have a look at the demand growth for registered nurses for the past 5 years and moving forward. And then we are going to ask our panelists regarding the impact of COVID on the demand for registered nurses, considering that, here on the ground, for example, I'm receiving a lot of inquiries about nursing courses. So let's have a look at that. And then I'm also really keen to understand from our panelists as to what the employers are actually seeking, what sort of skill set they are looking for when they are hiring registered nurses. And of course, we are going to ask a university representative as well about the pathways on how to become a registered nurse in Australia. So they're going to talk about their courses, the available courses, and when is it available, what are the requirements and things like that. And then lastly, we are also going to be joined by a registered nurse who's currently working here in Australia. So he could share with us his experience as a registered nurse, and then he'll probably give us a picture of how it is like to be a registered nurse here in Australia. All right. So now, without further ado, sorry, these are the topics that I have just mentioned. So all good. So without further ado, let's meet our panelists for today. So let's start with Ms. Tania Beament. She's the Director International of the School of Nursing and Midwifery of Edith Cowan University. Hi, how are you, Tania?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, could you please tell us a little bit about your role and what do you do at the university?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for inviting me today, Dan, to discuss nursing and midwifery. My role at the university is I'm the Director of International, and it looks primarily at the recruitment of international students to Australia, and in particular our university, and provides a pathway for them to undertake our programs and then to register and work as registered nurses throughout Australia.
Great. So
that's one part. The other part of my program is also to look at opportunities to deliver our programs offshore and to provide clinical placement opportunities for all of our students offshore when they're undertaking the program.
Great, Tania. I'm really looking forward to you sharing your insights about the nursing career in Australia. And I'm sure our listeners are very keen as well to hear much from you today. And of course, our next panelist is also from Edith Cowan University. Her name is Elizabeth Fu. She's the International Account Manager for International Partnership of ECU's International Office. How are you, Elizabeth?
Good, thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. And I think as the name implies, so you're the account manager, so you're also involved for sure in recruitment of, international students, right?
Yes, thank you, Dan. And thank you for having us here. Yes, my role is basically looking after partnerships with all of our onshore agents, as well as all of our onshore pathway providers. And from my name and look, I think most of our audience will know that actually I was from another country and I was actually an international student myself.
Okay.
So having that experience, it really helped me to understand our students' questions and the agents' questions.
I cannot agree more with that, Elizabeth. I've
Yes.
done the same. So it's like, okay, I understand where they're coming from. So it's really good. And of course, last but not least, we have Mr. Sanjeep Khadka. He's originally from Nepal, who started this journey as, well, he studied here before on a student visa. So he was an international student before and now working as a registered nurse. Hello, Sanjeep. How are you? Thank you for joining our session today.
Thank you, Dan, for the opportunity. Warm welcome to all the panelists. To those who are watching us live, my name is Sanjeep. I was an international student, as Dan mentioned. I've studied nursing. I finished my nursing here. I was a former student of AECC Global, and now currently I'm working as a registered nurse in Melbourne, Victoria. And I'll be happy to, I'll be happy to share my experience with you guys and help you to know a better insight about nursing and what I go through, what I went through, you know, in my journey.
Great, Sanjeep. Thank you. I'm also looking forward to you sharing your experience with the rest of the listeners for today. So let's jump on to the questions now. I guess my first question would go to Tania. So if you could please give us some sort of a perspective or an overview of who are registered nurses. What do they actually do? Because if you're going to ask me, okay, nurses are in the hospital. That's it. That's it for me. So could you please tell us about that?
Sure. Well, it's a great question. And I am a registered nurse myself. So I think something that's very unique to all nursing programs throughout Australia is that all of the lecturers and the tutors by our governing body have to be registered nurses or midwives. So as Sanjeep will attest to, that all of his lecturers would have been either nurses or midwives in the programs themselves and currently practicing. So I think that's something that's really quite unique. I graduated from Edith Cowan University when it first became a university. So that's going to give my age away, but it's now 30 years old. So if I was a first graduate, it was a long time ago.
It doesn't show, that's fine.
I think it's a fantastic role. It's something that I had always wanted to do. And I think in a hospital, the respect that a registered nurse gets is quite different. So within a hospital hierarchical system, we have patient care assistants, nursing aides. There's lots of terminology that would generally be used for them. Then we move into enrolled nursing. So that's your vet, registered or diploma nurse. So they're enrolled nurses. And then you get your registered nurse. So that's the highest qualification, a bachelor's qualification or a diploma from another country that enables you to become a registered nurse. So what that means is in Australia, your qualification is a comprehensive qualification. That means that we can work in any areas or specialties. So I am not a paediatric nurse, I'm not a mental health nurse. I can work across all discipline areas. So every one of the Australian qualified registered nurses has this comprehensive qualification. Okay. It enables much better dispersed of clinical knowledge for any areas that they want to work. So, and then you move levels through your levels of experience. So a clinical nurse is still a registered nurse that just has more levels of experience or years of experience and goes through a promotion pathway.
Okay, just to recap what you've said, so a typical nursing program in Australia would basically cover all these different nursing areas. The students will develop the skill set necessary for each of these areas, and then at the end of the day, it's up to them whether which area they want to focus on.
Absolutely. So once you register and finish your qualification, you can work in any of those areas that I mentioned. And then you will find your feet and which area interests you the most. For instance, I'm a trauma care or emergency nurse, and that was the pathway that I took following my registration, but it's not limited to any one area.
All right, great. So I'd like to hear from Sanjeep, because you are working as a registered nurse. So where are you working? What are you currently doing as a registered nurse?
Thank you, Dan. And like Tania says, there are a lot of specialty. You wanted to go, you can work. I tried my hospital nursing. I did work for a certain time in medical and surgical as a med-surg nurse, but then I started my journey from personal care assistant. Then I did my enrolled nursing, and then I did my Division 1, which is Bachelor of Nursing. And during this time, I've actually really enjoyed working in geriatric nursing, with the elderly people in the nursing homes. So and then I started working in a hospital, and at the same time I was working in the aged care, and I found my spot, and I said to myself, well, this is where I wanted to work. And I'm working as after-hour coordinator in one of the nursing home, and I'm a registered nurse in a nursing home. Yeah, so I work in aged care.
Great, which is interesting. Like what I said earlier in the beginning of this session, when you ask someone about nurses, they would say, okay, nurses can be found in a hospital. So it's interesting to note that a registered nurse can be a clinical instructor in a university. It could be someone working in a nursing home, like what you do, Sanjeep. So if it's not, if you're dreaming of becoming a nurse and then you're kind of afraid of going to hospital, then at least there are other options that you can consider, which is great. Now I'd like to go back to Tania and Elizabeth, maybe. I would like to have to hear from you about the current, or give us an overview of the current workforce in Australia, in terms of registered nurses, in terms of their demographics. Do we have more males than females, or the other way around? Or in terms of average age or average salary level? Are you able to give us information on that?
Yeah, I can probably answer that one for you, and it's quite a unique opportunity because I was at a conference only last week where we talked about the demographics and the future of the nursing workforce. So I'll start with the future of the nursing workforce. I think, Dan, you mentioned before about COVID and the impetus that has had on the nursing profession in itself.
Yep.
The profession of nursing, I think, is the highest and most respected and regarded in that it has been for quite some time. And what that has meant that the focus has now been on the nursing and the impact that they have on patient care. And there's a lot of hospitals and institutions that realise that perhaps they need to staff their institutions better. And as a result, that means for employability, I think moving forward is a fantastic time to be a nurse. I can talk to globally, we know that we're going to be about 120,000 nurses short in the next 5 years. And that's just going to increase rapidly. Now, particularly with the event of COVID, there's a lot of nurses that will have post-traumatic stress disorders, will need time off after this, not necessarily in Australia, but certain countries where COVID has really had an impact on the health and well-being of their population. And in Australia alone, we are going to be 25,000 nurses short by 2025, and that will increase to 80,000 by 2030.
Wow.
Now, that is a significant shortage of nurses in a country that's as relatively small as Australia. So on a global scale, that's even, exponentially much larger. Now, the reason for that is twofold. One, you talked about the age. We know that 75% of our current nursing workforce is at retirement age. So that leaves a huge gap for up-and-coming nurses. When that 75, that retiring group do retire, we're going to lose a huge amount of our workforce, huge amount. So we really need to start looking now at replenishing that workforce and what that looks like. Now, we use a university system for that. So we graduate, all of our graduates will get positions. We've been informed by the Department of Health here in Western Australia that there's 700 new graduate positions available for the next cohort of students. That has never, ever happened previously. It was in the hundreds. I'm sure it's the same, Sanjeep, in the Eastern Seaboard, in Melbourne, Canberra. Everybody will be doing exactly the same as we are here in Western Australia. So the age profile is something to consider. When it comes to men in nursing, that's a project that I'm quite passionate about and currently undertaking a project with lots of universities around Australia of looking at how we encourage men to become registered nurses. They're invaluable in the workforce. They're a really important part of our workforce team. And currently we sit at about 13%.
Did you say 13? Sorry.
13, 13. 13% of registered nurses are male. And that's improving. I think it's improved, well, certainly since I've been in this role, it's improved from when I graduated. We used to have 2 or 3 in our class. At our university, it's sitting at about 16%. So I think slowly, it's starting to become known by both males and females as a profession moving forward that is something that's really warranted and guaranteed. Yeah. So,
which is great. I would like to comment on the, first on the future of the career, of the nursing career in Australia, which is looking very good. So at least that's that's a much, a very good news to many students who are considering to do a nursing course in Australia later on or in the future. And then having that, 75% of the current nurses in Australia are on retirement age. So that will indeed, or that will even, increase the demand for nursing in the next few years. So that's probably, validated by the figures that you shared that the next 5 years and the next 8 years or so, there's going to be this increase in demand, which is very positive looking. In terms of the male nurses, it's still low at it's a bit low at 13%. So it's good that so Sanjeep being one of those part of that 13%. So I guess there might be some blokes out there who are actually not, maybe they're kind of hesitant or they have reservation because they might think that nursing is a very feminine kind of occupation, which is indeed not. All right. I'd like to go to Elizabeth regarding the demographics. I'm not sure whether in terms of the enrollment at ECU for your nursing programs, are you seeing an increase in the number of male students applying for nursing?
I think Tania will be able to answer that question better than me. We see that too. Yeah.
Look, Dan, it's certainly increasing. It's not as nearly as many as I'd like. I would really encourage males to become part of the nursing profession. And it's great that you've got Sanjeep here because I think that the more males that talk about nursing and their experience of nursing, I think the profile changes. It typically was very much a female-centered role, a bit like teaching, nursing and teaching. If you're a girl, that's what you went into. But I think that idea is shifting. At our university, it's sitting at about 16%, which is still low. We have over 3,000 students in our programs, both undergraduate and postgraduate. So 16% is male. It's not huge, and there is absolutely room for improvement, but it has improved year on year. So I think that's something that's very positive. And like I said, the research that we're currently undertaking is finding out why the males that are in nursing like it and want to be there so that we can expand on that, go to primary schools, really look at how do we encourage more males to become nurses.
And this is one way to encourage them to pursue nursing. Hey, all blokes out there listening. So yeah, this is not too late. If you want to do nursing, then you can definitely pursue a nursing course here in Australia to be a registered nurse. I would like to hear from Sanjeep again in terms of, these demographics in the workplace. So at your workplace, since you're working in a nursing home, do you actually, are there more or females? Well, possibly, than males, but how's the kind of ratio like?
Look, thank you, Dan. Before going to a workforce, I would like to mention a few very important things. From the country I come from, Nepal, we don't have male nurses. So, so yes, basically it was very important for me, not just to get finish the nursing, also to break the stigma that we male can be nurses too. And it's I'm very pleased to share this news that I've recently seen in the news. We've actually started a nursing in Nepal with a few male students, and I think this is a really good encouragement for them. And it's just, I think, unlike other profession, I'm fairly new to this profession, but what I have seen is it is definitely this profession is been dominated by a lot of female nurses, and this history has taught us a lot that if we can bring both gender together in the profession, I think the unity, the output, the result we get is tremendous. And I'm pleased to share we've got a lot of male nurses working with me in a team in a different facilities within the Victoria, and I think we are not we haven't reached the figure that we really wanted to see, but definitely it's a positive sign. And
at least there's an improvement.
It is. And I think this from this webinar, I think it's a very awakening call for all the male males who want to do nursing. I think if you want to do nursing, if you have the compassion and empathy to the profession, you certainly can do it. And this is profession for everyone, not just for female, not just for male, for every gender, and it's very welcoming. I think.
Very well said, Sanjeep. I think it's already 2021, so there should be some sort of inclusivity, in the different sectors. So there shouldn't be no feminine sector versus, masculine sector and things
exactly.
Like that. Yeah, so that's good. Now let's jump on the actually Tania has already spoken about the future of nursing in Australia in terms of career opportunities. That was supposed to be our next topic, but there were actually because on the ground, being an education consultant at AECC, we are actually getting heaps of inquiries for nursing courses. Like everybody wants to do nursing. There were actually, I would receive some questions from my clients at the AECC asking, hey, there are already a lot of nursing students, a lot of graduates, and then they're worried that there might be some sort of oversupply of nursing graduates in Australia in relation to the demand for nurses. Just because I'm from the Philippines and it happened a few years ago in my country, there were heaps of graduates and then there are no more workplace available for them. So I don't think it's happening in Australia.
Yeah. And Dan, I can probably answer that. I think it's been quite a cycle. When I very first started in the role, every graduate, whether you're an international or a domestic graduate, all got positions. And then we had the global financial crisis. So there was a lot of tightening around the health dollar. And I guess it was like they were taking Australian residents and citizens first and then international students. So depending where you sat in that cycle is what your chance of employment is. We're now well and truly coming out on the other side of what that looks like. And with the work skills shortage, the current COVID situation, I think we're starting to see a peak again where we're going to have both internationally and domestic registered nurses all get graduate programs. So like I said, just in WA alone, there's going to be 700 new graduate positions this year. All 4 universities that teach nursing programs here in Western Australia will not be able to provide that number. So, there's already this impetus that we're on the way back up in the cycle in terms of employability. Personally, I only see that increasing over the next few years as well. So I don't think that we will peak with that for a long time, particularly because 75% of our workforce at retirement. That's a huge hole to fill, and it's only ever filled with new graduates. So I think for the next 5-10 years that the employability of registered nurses is going to be significant.
That's very good to know, Tania. Now, before we proceed with the next questions, I'd like to encourage our attendees for today that if you have any question, again, please type in your questions on through the Q&A button, and then we'll try to answer your questions before we conclude the session for today. Now, in terms of, so we're talking about the future of nursing. I would like to, and then you mentioned about there are 700,000 available, new jobs for new graduates in Western Australia alone. So I don't know whether Tania or Elizabeth can answer that. How's the employability rate of your nursing graduates in the university? Are they able to, would you have statistics on how soon they can find, they were able to find job as RN, or, those statistics if you have? Anything that you can share?
Yeah. I'll probably be able to answer that for you, Elizabeth, because each school is responsible for their own employability strategy. So we get a lot of the data from employability specific to our school. So Elizabeth would cover all schools and probably not be over the data. But The latest employability data for nursing programs compared to other programs is positive. For our school, Edith Cowan University, it sits at 89% of employability post-graduation. However, in saying that, when they do this data and these surveys, they consider employment as full-time employment. So a lot of nurses choose not to work full-time. They might have families, or they might do a 9-day fortnight, or they might do less than that, a part-time type of role. So they're not captured in what that looks like. So my belief is that there's always work available for the registered nurses. And I think that employability number is going to significantly increase. But the data collected only includes full-time, and not all of our nurses would work full-time. So I would presume that well and truly within the first few months of registration, that work is available. It might not be in the hospital, in the ward, that you'll absolutely want to be going to. But, you know, nursing is a journey, and you can get into different wards and make your way through to get where you want to. And exactly. I think that's
exactly what happened to Sanjeep. He was some sort of, testing the waters and then trying to figure out whether, that particular field of nursing is for him or not, until, he finally decided and found his, his place in the nursing career, which is great. So as you were saying, since this, so it could be higher, much higher than 89% in terms of employability.
I would think so, because a lot choose to do part-time.
And how do you compare?
A lot of rosters are 9 days a fortnight, and that's not considered full-time work. And so that's not captured in the data.
And then how do you compare these statistics against, let's say, the national level, or maybe state level within WA?
I think we can compare it to universities. So we compare it to university level. So most of the universities sit around that level. Some are slightly higher, but then again, it's volume of students. So the more students you have, the lower your percentage is going to be. If you've only got a few students and they all get employed, then you're at 100%. So it's around the volume as well. I think in the States, differently in the States, I know in the eastern states, there's a lot of opportunities for students. And quite a few years ago, when we didn't have the employability in the West, a lot of our students were going to the eastern states and all getting graduate programs or employment there. Right. So I think as a program, registered nursing program has very strong employability statistics.
Okay. So of course, aside from now, let's talk about the the set of skills that employers are normally be looking for when from the workforce in the labor market in hiring nurses. So aside of course from having that registered nursing qualification, so what other skills that students or job seekers should consider for them to have for them to get a job here in Australia as RN?
Well, I think Sanjeep mentioned a couple: compassion and empathy. Nurses generally are caring people. It's part of your DNA. If you're not willing to be a caring person, I'm not sure that nursing's the right choice for you. Yeah. But I think there's other specialties as well, critical thinking, organisation skills. You have to be someone that can be relied upon. With nursing is the most trusted profession in the world, and that's quite a privilege to be considered that position. So you have to be someone that can be relied upon, resilient. Not every day does everything go according to plan. So you have to be quite resilient sometimes. It's not always the best day. Some days are fantastic, but the outcome might be not what you've expected. So you've got to have a level of resilience that you can get back, and you get to do this all over again. So you're faced with a lot of challenges also. So I think it's a very well-rounded, empathetic, caring person. And honestly, the nursing, and I'm sure Sanjeep might have said he's quite new to the profession, but it teaches you so much as well along the journey. And you've got to be willing to learn new things from different people all the way along that journey.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that, nursing may not be for everybody, because, a lot of students on the ground or, future international students, they're just, asking us, they want to do nursing for PR purposes, for permanent residency purposes. But, it's good to, educate them that, there are occupations that may not be for you. So at the end of the day, you might not enjoy your journey as a student, and also, after completing the course, you might be successful in doing that. But since you don't have, that passion towards this particular field, then you might not be successful in this case, which is great. Now I want to, sorry Elizabeth for for not asking you a lot of questions, but yeah, now let's jump on to the pathways on how to become a registered nurse in Australia. So can you please tell us about the available pathways at ECU in order for international students to be a registered nurse in the future?
Okay, cool. So basically at ECU, we actually have 2 courses that can qualify a student to become registered nurse, a bachelor course and a master course. The bachelor course is Bachelor of Science, in brackets nursing. The course code is C33. For this course, and also for the master course, which is Master of Nursing, in brackets graduate entry, the course code is J46. For both courses, we have same English entry requirement, which is IELTS 7 with no band below than 7. For PTE, that is 65 with no band below than 65. So as mentioned, then English requirement for both courses are the same, but academic requirement for the bachelor course and the master course will be definitely different because there are different levels of AQF qualification. So basically for the bachelor course, we actually need the student to meet the minimum academic entry for ECU. And we do have a list of different countries than to what are the qualification that we accept for the bachelor course. But if student doesn't meet our minimum academic entry for our Bachelor of Science Nursing, C33, we do have ECC pathway, which delivers a diploma of health science nursing stream. Upon completion of the diploma, student will be able to get into our 2nd year of our Bachelor of Science Nursing C33. However, the English entry requirement into the diploma is 6.5 with no band below than 6.5. That means when the student are completing the diploma or upon completion of the diploma, student must meet the IELTS 7 with no band below than 7 before they can get into our 2nd year. And also another pathway which cannot be packaged is basically for students who are currently in Australia and doing diploma of enrolled nursing. Upon completing of the diploma of enrolled nursing, if students have received APRA EN registration, with the EN registration from APRA, the diploma of enrolled nursing, and the full transcript of the diploma, student will be able to get into our 2nd year entry. Just want to repeat that, emphasize that for this pathway, this cannot be packaged. That means that students have to complete the diploma of enrolled nurse and have obtained the APRA EN registration before they can get an offer for Bachelor of Science Nursing, C33 into ECU. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned about the Bachelor of Nursing, the Master of Nursing, and then the Diploma of Health. Sorry, what was that? Diploma of Health Science, which is typically equivalent to the 1st year of the University of the Bachelor of Nursing, right? And then the 2-year Bachelor of Nursing or 2nd year entry if they have obtained their registration as enrolled nurse after completing a Diploma of Nursing. Now, like here onshore, I'm based in Brisbane, so most of our clients actually, or most of our students seeking for a nursing program are already registered nurses from overseas. So they would apply for the Bachelor of Nursing typically. So are you able to give credit based on overseas studies and overseas work experience as registered nurses?
So basically, there are 3 requirements that students must have for them to be able to receive 2 years of credit, which is, first of all, they must have their overseas nursing qualification undergrad. And the second one is they must be a current registered nurse from their home country, which means then their registration must be currently valid from home country. And the third one is actually about work experience. It must be a clinical environment work experience as a registered nurse, which is post-registration work experience in a clinical environment. And this experience must be within last 5 years.
And how long should that experience be?
Tania, I don't think we have a specific requirement on the
case.
length. Yeah, but
just providing it's within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what the experience is, providing it's performing the roles and duties of a registered nurse within the last 5 years.
Can you please elaborate?
Can be paid or volunteer.
Okay.
So I appreciate that in some countries, not all registered nurses are getting jobs, paid jobs, but if you work as a registered nurse performing roles and responsibilities in a volunteer role within an institution, that will also be considered for advanced standing.
Can you please elaborate more on the clinical environment context? What does it mean? Does it have to be in a hospital, or how is it? Like
it's more about the roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
So, but it has to be clinically. So Elizabeth is right. You can't be an educator and still be considered. If you just left straight from your institution offshore, you then go and become a lecturer and have had no clinical experience in that time, then you will get advanced standing, but it might not be the full 2 years of advanced standing. So it's a regulation that comes from our regulatory board, APRA, that the international registered nurse must provide evidence that they're practicing clinically, so that in order we can give them advanced standing for some of our clinical units.
Great.
So it's around, it can be as a volunteer doing community work within your home or setting. It can be in a hospital environment. It can be as a school nurse. There's lots of options it can be, very, very variety, but it can't be in teaching or I haven't worked at all. I'm an accountant.
Sure.
Because that's not performing the roles and responsibilities that we'd expect of a registered nurse.
Okay, so at ECU, for your Bachelor of Science in Nursing, you could give a maximum of 2 years credit, so that would potentially reduce the course to 1 year. And then credit assessment would be on a case-by-case basis, depending on your work experience from back home as a registered nurse and whether you have how recent that experience was. Now, I have a question regarding that. Just popped into my mind. In terms of employability, are employers actually looking into, okay, how long has this person studied in Australia? She only studied for 1 year, so I would prefer probably someone who studied longer. Does it matter in the from the perspective of the employers?
Don't know. Our employers don't know how long you've studied in Australia.
Okay.
Once you have your qualification, you have your qualification. It's not listed how long you've done it. And you take your transcript and you're registered with APRA as a registered nurse. Your employer doesn't look at the transcript of where you've undertaken your studies. All they're worried about is that you've met the requirements to be a registered nurse with APRA.
So as long as you have...
Yeah, as long as you have your registration, it doesn't matter whether you've done Deakin or ECU or Notre Dame or anywhere. They don't even look for that piece of paper.
Great to know. Great to know that you mentioned about, employers don't look at the transcripts, because that's normally a common question as well. Are they going to look at, my transcripts because the GPA is quite low, something like that. So which is very good to know. In terms of the Master of Nursing, so it's a graduate entry. So could you please define what graduate entry means? Can someone from an entirely different background, not health related, pursue a Master of Nursing graduate entry?
Yeah, that is correct. The reason that it's called graduate entry is because basically what we need, I've already talked about English requirement. For the academic requirement, we need the student to have a comparable bachelor. So basically, if you have a bachelor from Australia, then that's a bachelor. But if you have a bachelor from overseas, then that bachelor needs to be assessed by our admissions office to say that whether it's comparable to an Australian bachelor. So this is the requirement. However, we do have a VAM requirement on the undergraduate courses. At the moment, it's 60%. And however, I do highly recommend that agents and students check our website for the update on entry requirements, because we do review this on a yearly basis and it can be updated. So please do check our website very regularly. But as to date, the WAM requirement is 60%. If student has health science background, then student will be able to meet our direct entry. But if student is from a different background, for example, if student has a Bachelor of Commerce or Bachelor of Engineering, then student will be required to take an online unit, which is a very basic unit, which is health preparation unit. Bear in mind, this unit is actually done online. That means that if our student currently is in other states and not in Perth, they don't actually need to travel to Perth to do this online unit.
Okay, so this prerequisite unit, it has to be completed before ECU can finalize the offer letter for master
So
nursing?
basically, what we do is we actually issue a conditional offer.
Okay.
With the only condition that on the offer is that student need to complete this online
courses.
unit before the student can commence the course, so the master's course.
Yeah, still about the Master of Nursing graduate entry. What if someone who has already a nursing qualification and a registered nurse from their home country wants to pursue this course? Is it also fine?
Well, they need to have the
them?
bachelor degree. As I mentioned, that the academic requirement is minimum academic requirement is a bachelor degree with a VAM of 60 as to date. So if, for example, if the student fall under the category we just talked about, that student that has an undergraduate in nursing but not degree, and then if student doesn't want to go into the C33, which is the Bachelor of Science Nursing for 1 year duration, but only want to go into the two-year duration. Well, if student doesn't have the bachelor, student won't be able to get into this 2-year master of nursing graduate.
And then when are these courses available in terms of intake?
So we have this course available for February intake.
Okay, so both the bachelor and the
bachelor course, we are delivering it on 2 campuses. So basically for our Joondalup campus, we have February intake and July intake. For our regional campus, which is Bunbury campus, and that is only 2 hours drive from our metropolitan area. For Bunbury campus is February intake only.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe I'm going towards my last few questions. So maybe this would be for everybody. So why do you think that international students should consider nursing and pursue a nursing career here in Australia? Maybe we could start with Sanjeep in that case.
I think considering the number of nurses we are, the nursing forces we are lacking, and I think to meet the to increase the number of nurses to work all over the world, and not just only nursing, every profession, it depends what they want to pursue. And if you have that compassion and empathy, and if you think you're right for the profession, then yes, it is definitely, especially it's easier for international students to get a permanent residency. I think that is one point, but at the same time, it's just not for the permanent residency. It's for your future, how you want it to be in the next 10 years. So I think if you have, if you can picture yourself in 10 years being in the same profession and proudly be in the same profession with ultimate satisfaction, then yes, it is, I think, a really good opportunity, and international students, they should choose to study nursing. Having said that, it is also very important to choose a right agent to get a proper proper counseling and guidance, because we often rely on websites, and as Elizabeth mentioned, there are things that they review yearly basis, some changes in a quarterly basis, and it depends, and we are not sometimes we are not up to date, and we just relying on the information we see website. I think it can be a bit difficult and you can be lost. So find the right person. If you think you are ready for the profession, get a proper help. Migration agents, AECC Global is there. I'm really satisfied because I got my permanent residency. I've actually settled in Australia. My journey was full of roller coaster. Being a commerce student and now a registered nurse, it's full. We'll talk that later. But yes, being an international student, I think it is very important for you to choose the right path. And we're always there for you.
Great. Thanks, Sanjeep. I really appreciate the kind words of yours for AECC. That's definitely our job, to educate our clients and bring them to the right pathway. Really, thank you so much for that, Sanjeep. And Sanjeep has a very interesting profile from a Bachelor of Arts in Nepal, and then he came here, pursue aged care, Diploma of Nursing, and then Bachelor of Nursing until he found his place in the field of nursing, which is very great. So Tania, yes, why would you encourage someone in Australia or maybe offshore, once border have reopened to pursue nursing?
Yeah, look, I think the points that Sanjeep made is very, very good. And I think also that, Australia is a very multicultural country. You can see just by looking at the screen right in front of you, all of the guests that you've got today. We're all in Australia, but we're often very, very different backgrounds and cultures. And that transpires to patients. So what you see daily is a very multicultural society, and we need nurses to reflect our patient cohort. So the more international experience that we can bring into our nursing workforce, it will mean that better care for patients. And I think that that's something that's really, really important. And we will always continue to be an international country and welcome guests from all around the world. So in order to do that, our nurses need to reflect that our cohort. And I think that that's where there's always going to be an opportunity for international students. They're always going to feel very welcome and not out of place, because they have many from their country that already live in Australia. So I think that that's something that's really important. And as a profession, I have been in it for 30 years. So I think Sanjeep said, if it's something that you want to stay in, then you can stay in it. And you don't need to just work in a hospital. There are so many other opportunities to work a field when you're a nurse. Mining, you can work in school health, you can work as a teacher, teaching human biology. There is so many opportunities with a nursing qualification.
Great, thank you, Tania. Elizabeth, maybe you could share your or maybe invite future international students or current international students who might want to move to Western Australia and pursue nursing course at ECU.
Thank you very much. I believe some of our audience here actually attended the earlier webinar that was hosted by AECC Immigration Agent, Migration Counselor Amy Zhang. She actually also mentioned about registered nurse in her topic about the occupation. And at WA, we actually have the highest employment rate amongst all states in Australia, as well as Perth is one of the most livable city in the world. And I myself is also I'm actually a testament for that, because I actually was also an ECU graduate. I came to Perth in 2004, and I've traveled around Australia, lived in different cities for a short while, but still returned back to Perth. That actually is a proof of how welcome Perth is to international students, and also for international students to settle and have Perth as home. I just want to note for our third year entry into Bachelor of Science Nursing, it's just very unfortunate for our July intake. We won't be able to offer places to students that who are eligible for the third year entry into our Bachelor of Science Nursing programs. However, as I mentioned before that, if you are eligible for our second year entry, which is you have now completed your diploma of EN and have got your EN registration from APRA, you are more than welcome and you are highly encouraged to apply for our second year entry for July intake. Or if you don't have any nursing background, and you don't have a bachelor degree, you're more than welcome to submit your application for our first year entry into our nursing program too for July intake. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. We have a couple of questions here from the attendees, so let's go through them. So one is from Katrina. She's in the process of getting an admission for Master of Nursing graduate entry. Just a question at the moment: is this on campus or mix of online and on campus? She's currently in Sydney.
Okay,
I can answer that one. You like? So because it's a course that leads to registration, did you say, sorry, Dan, I missed the student's name.
So her question basically is if the delivery would be on campus or a mix of online.
And it was it Karina?
Karina, yes, Katrina. Yeah. Katrina is her name.
Katrina. So Katrina, you do, because the program leads to registration, it's a requirement that the program's undertaken on campus in the city where the program's being undertaken. So you will need to relocate from Sydney to Perth to commence your program. And that's because all of the clinical placements will take place in Perth, in the Perth institutions and hospitals. So, basically you have to be in Perth to commence the program. It is all on campus. There's no online learning.
All right, so Katrina, so Tania just answered your question. Second question is from Shashikala KC. What is the best way to get a job in nursing as an international student?
Yep, that's a good question. So what we have and other states have is a program called Grad Connect when the students complete their program. And Grad Connect basically links all of the hospitals together and you apply for programs. It's not the only way to get employment. There is a site in WA called Jobs at Health. They have lots and lots of employment opportunities. Sanjeep will probably tell you the way that he got employed. It might not have been through a graduate program. There are many, many, many avenues to seek employment once you've graduated.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you, Tania, Elizabeth, and Sanjeep for your for joining our session today. And we're towards the last part of our session, which is the kind of a raffle. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, there's a $100 voucher to be given away. It's a digital MasterCard. So I'm going to be asking one simple question, and then if you could please type in your answer through the Q&A button. And then the first one who answers it correctly would win the $100 voucher. So here is my question. It's very simple. How long is a typical full duration of a Bachelor of Nursing course in Australia? Is it 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years? Okay, so I got an answer now from Shashikala, although my instruction was to send it through the Q&A answer button, but you sent it through the chat section. That's all good. So Shashikala KC, so you've just won a $100 digital MasterCard. So I will, please contact us after this event, just so we can coordinate with you on how you can claim your $100 digital voucher. Again, thank you everybody for joining our session today. There will be the next part of the education fair of ACC would be the actual education fair wherein you will have the opportunity to speak with the university representatives directly, and then Elizabeth will be there until 5 p.m. today, AEST. So there are actually about 29 participating institutions in this expo. So please feel free to join our session. I'm going to be sharing this the link here in the chat section. So you have the Zoom link for the actual education fair, which will run from 3 to 5 p.m. today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tania. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you, Sanjeep, for supporting our session today. It was nice talking to all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.